Hello. Hey, we're all here. That's
All
awesome.
right.
Hi.
Yes. How's it going, everybody? How's it going, Heather?
It's going great, Ruben. How are you?
Good. Good. And tonight we have Alyssa. How you doing, Alyssa, tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, and we're excited to have you here tonight too. How's
Yay.
everything going? How's everybody doing this weekend? And we'd like to thank everybody for showing up to Cali Cocktail Hour, a special occasion. It is Tuesday, and it's a pop-up, and we have a very special guest, which is Alyssa, who popped up, which is perfect. It's awesome. Yeah, right? Yeah, so Heather, how you doing this weekend? I mean, this week, I'm sorry. Usually it's on Friday, so I mean,
No, it's been a good week. How about you?
it's been good. Kind of a little bit of stress here and there, but well, what's expected in life, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, Alyssa, how you been this week?
Uh, Mostly good, productive, which is good. Kind of coming out of that Mercury retrograde bullshit, which,
Woo! Yeah.
funny enough, I wasn't in a bad mood, but it was like dealing with a lot of other people's bad mood coming at me. And it was like, oh my God. So
I
That's
just,
felt
awesome.
that. I felt that strange communication gap
Mhm.
for a while there.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And we're very happy to have you here tonight too. I know we talked about it for a while, and we finally got going on it, and we have a lot to talk to you about. A lot with your what's going on with you. Who are you, right? Who is Alyssa?
Who
That's what we're
is
coming here for,
Alyssa?
right? Yeah. So thank you for coming on too.
Yeah,
And
of course.
on a very somber moment, we like to give our hearts out to the 500,000 people who we passed for COVID, and we are in this why this show existed in the first place because of everybody out there, and we are looking for people out there that need help, and or need some sort of like somewhere to we can listen and help them out too. But 500,000 that passed away during this pandemic and going, our hearts go out to everybody, and the people that are helping out too on the front lines too,
Mhm.
as we're coming into this not end of it, but you know somewhat of a light
New
at the end of the tunnel.
chapter.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. So
Agree.
so on that note, we like to think about that stuff. So, um, but yeah, we're gonna have a lot of questions for you, a lot of insights of you, because I do know you from a while, but there is some things I
Mhm.
don't know about you. Usually we'll talk about that too. So we're gonna go to a song right now, and we're gonna bring up a song, and then we're gonna come back to to talk and have a great conversation tonight and feeling good, and hopefully we'll get all that back into a good motion. Um, so let's go, and we'll come back, and we will see you there, and we will come back right now. Get your drink, and do your thing, and we'll be right back with Cali Cocktail Hour. We'll see some dancers in Mexico City. We'll bring them up, and we'll be back. So we are back. Yes, a commercial break. And we are powered by,
Powered by
So-
YouTube.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we are so happy to have you, Alyssa, here for our Cali Cocktail Hour. And we have lots of questions for you coming up with you. Yes. So let's get back to that commercial kind of threw me off. So it's not really a commercial. But I had everything set up the way. So, and it's a live stream, so you never know what's going to happen, right? It's gonna go. So welcome to Cali Cocktail Hour. And how are you today?
Doing good, feeling good. Was excited about this all day for sure. Also helped me, like, when you're thinking about things you want to say, it's like, oh, I've never actually thought about saying that out loud. So spent some good time thinking.
Yeah.
Well, that's good because, like I said, we are here, to ask you questions about your life and who you are and what you do. And there is, because there's some interesting interesting things I want to ask you too that we never had a chance to talk, right? Because usually it's like at a loud place or
Right.
I'm leaving and this is we're going somewhere or something like that.
You're
So
coming in
that's
for the
good.
gummies and you're running out.
Yes, that's right. Especially nowadays. So, I guess I'll start on the questioning too of like, so are you Alyssa the Gold Country Witch, right? And we asked you, like, I think earlier today we asked you where you're from, and but one thing too, we wanted to know, how did, number one, people will see the term witch, right? And they're like, oh, I don't know what it is, and I don't know what it means, because I look at that too, right? And we're coming from newbies, and and as a way of trying to understand different people, different modalities, different energies, right? And we all coexist and get along. So,
Right.
but I would love to know, I think Heather and I talked about, like, when did what would you describe yourself as, so to speak?
Like, can you start at the start? Like, when
Start
you
at the
say witch, right? Like, how did that come about for you? And what does that mean exactly?
So I'll start with my personal story, and then we can expand, sort of like defining the term witch. Witch has a lot of various connotations, especially now in the postmodern era. But for myself, aside from having I grew up very intuitive and would have dreams about things that would happen. And my mother was very intuitive, although she's often said that I'm like a little more spot on. And there was also always just the pure draw of it. And I think that's something you'll hear from a lot of witches everywhere, is that there is just this draw to things that are mysterious, to nature, to the metaphysical, to the ethereal. And that was definitely me. One of the things I most distinctly remember actually was a Martha Stewart holiday special for Halloween. And there was this whole section in the middle, and I am convinced that Martha Stewart is a witch. No one can tell me otherwise, and I think she's amazing. There was this whole section in the middle that was just folklore around Halloween. And it was really even looking back as an adult now with a degree in anthropology, it was like, that's actually pretty impressive. They did a really good job researching it, but I would expect nothing less from her anyways. And that's like just one of the more distinct memories, and like reading some of those things and having this really intense draw to that and believing those things, believing those myths. And having a sense that those things were real. And then, over the years, I had interest in other things, but I couldn't really express them growing up in the church and growing up going to a Christian school. But when I finally went to college, I got to take a course called Magic, Witchcraft, and Religion, anthropology course. And I got to look at it for what it was, not what I was being told that it was. And they were all things that I value: nature, personal responsibility, knowing yourself on a deeper level. And I was like, hey, that is exactly me. And then, of course, the more I got into it, the more it just made sense. A friend of mine calls it like an orientation. It's just something that you are. And that's also one of the things I really like about witchcraft, is that it's not like, if you don't join our cult, then you're gonna X, Y, Z. Aliens are gonna come and you're gonna miss the boat. Witches are just, you're either a witch or you're not, and it's not a big deal if you're not. And if you are, then you are.
And are all witches Wiccan, or is that something separate?
So all Wiccans are witches, but not all witches are Wiccans. So witchcraft, the term Wicca, I'll start with that, comes from an Old English word that means essentially to be well studied or a wise person. And this could be that it was mostly related to people who were healers, who were what we would maybe call medicine people. Now, in anthropology, they might call them a shaman, or a folk medicine, like parallel to a curandera in Mexican culture. Or they would have also called them the cunning person, the cunning woman, or the cunning man. And so that's where the term Wicca was pulled from by a few individuals who were sort of wanting to rebuild witchcraft, particularly in England. And they called this new religion that they were building up Wicca. And it includes a lot of practices from various secret societies like Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, the cult of Venus, and pulls on some indigenous practice as well. They added in some English folk magic to it, and they called it Wicca. And then in the 1970s through 80s, it started being recognized as a legal religion in a few countries. And that's why most people, like, you might see them kind of like associate with Wicca, even if they aren't Wiccan, because when you take the census, that's the closest thing to it. But there's all kinds of other witches. There's old world witchcraft. And then, of course, anthropology really co-opted that term and projected it onto a bunch of other practices like brujeria, which is its own thing. But it's sort of become this larger definition of a metaphysical, earth-based practice.
Cool.
I like
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah. And like I said, that's a good way to, like I said, a lot of us are new at different, this kind of practice, right? And we want to kind of open up the conversation to that, for that too, on that too. So we're very happy that you're here for us to, to explain, that stuff, and yourself too. Because like I said, you're a wonderful person. I know you for, yeah. So, and Marlo says, hello, friends. Marie says, hello, Ruben. Hello, Marie.
Hello.
And then Vidal says, hello, friends, too. So, and if you have any questions for Alisa, we'd like to hear from them, too, because this is an interactive show. And, so it is interesting because, like, when did you first interest peak, or was it something that you felt, back then, too? Right? Because, I know that for myself, my mom who raised me, there, we had these conversations, but they were kind of secret conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's secret practices in Mexico that I had to go, and so I was like always confused, I was like, okay, well, what if this happened, and so, but it's curious to see, like, when did you, like when Heather goes back, like when did you feel it coming about you, and on that too?
When I kind of think back on it, I start to have more memories of sort of that feeling the more I think back on it. One of my earliest ones was that I had this and this might be more parallel actually to my indigenous experience, but I had this little tiny abalone pendant, and it was a miniature shell, a little miniature abalone shell, and it was gilded with gold around the edges, and I liked to wear it. And I remember kind of calling it my religion in my head, which I know it doesn't make sense, but when you're a kid, like you don't, and you're raised in a Christian school, you don't have the word for like, this is my talisman, or like, this is my thing that somehow represents me. And the reason the abalone shell is used in indigenous ceremonies is also because it's related to the 4 elements. That's like one of the earlier memories, but I remember a lot of, kids will obsess with fairies, but I was obsessed with them on this like really academic level where I would look them up in encyclopedias. And I don't mean like the cute ones you get in the bookstore. This was like a real encyclopedia, and I was like trying to learn about them. And I remember one time really specifically my mom saying, I just want to make sure you know that they're not real. And feeling inside myself like this kind of anger and resistance to that, because I knew that couldn't be true. I just knew it.
Yeah.
That feeling just really grew over the years, especially like the more I would read about physics and alternate realities in science, not just in our ethereal concepts of alternate realities. And the more I learned about that, the more I was just really solidified in the idea these kinds of things have to be real.
Yeah, and I know that your grandma had a big influence on you. So I'll ask about that too. So we're going to show a picture of you and your grandma right now, because I think that we'll go deeper into the roots, right, of how, and I'm interested in, I didn't have grandparents, so I'm always interested in grandparents. So this is you and your grandma, right?
Mm-hmm. I love that picture.
Great picture, yeah.
And your grandma was, what was her roots on back there too?
Sorry?
Like what was your grandma's, I don't want to say her DNA, but what was her, she was indigenous, right?
Well, she's still with us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. She, the tribe that side of the family is Northern Cheyenne.
Yeah.
Which you can see in her regalia. She has the prairie style regalia. Not that you would know that, but explain that with the furs that you see on her braids and the big clips, the scarf. Those are strong indicators of the prairie style. And on that side is also German, Welsh, and French, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I know that, when you talk about, your indigenous roots, you also do, a lot of your European roots, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's awesome, by the way. I think in our, when we look at our DNA, what we're comprised of, right? I mean, I look at mine, I have to try to figure out who's, where do I go? And, I have Native Asian blood and, European blood, and, I got to figure out where to go and where to to be at peace with, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So, and your grandma, where does she live at right now?
She's in Colfax, in Gold Country also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the term Gold Country Witch, where'd you get that from?
So I grew up in Auburn in the heart of Gold Country. And I started my business right when I came back from New York. And I love New York to death. It's my other home. It's like this other half of my soul, a different version of me. Not a different version. It's like this, we all have different parts of us. And there's like New Yorker Alisa, and then there's the part of me that's very Gold Country, and I, loves gardening and wants to be out in the wild and by the river every day. And you can see why Ruby and I are friends. And so that's when I was coming back, it was like, I was like reclaiming myself. And coming up with a business name was kind of hard. And I just felt like that really captured me at that time. And I think it still does. I'm just in, a different part of Gold Country now.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to the fairies, if we can, we left off there. We went through lots of other things, but I was like, fairies, oh my gosh, that's something that I hadn't even thought about, is like there's like this super kind of supernatural component to the mystical. And I'm wondering if you can comment just on that side of it, right? There's like, what is the breadth of being a witch encompass? Is it, you know, we've gone so far already. You've started with your background in it and what resonated to you. But then there's spells and incantations, and there's like nature worship and fair, like it seems such like a big category. Like where do you?
It really is, especially now that term's become so broad to put so many different practices under its umbrella.
Yeah.
And, you know, even wider than that would be magical traditions, which would include other magical religions like voodoo, practices like hoodoo, even Taoism can be put under that umbrella. But with witchcraft, there seem to me some really specific markers, in my opinion. One is definitely working with nature, reverence towards nature. You'll see a lot of witches, even if they're not Wiccan, work with the 4 or 5 elements of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Many, I wouldn't say all, I would say early Wicca and traditional witchcraft they included a focus on the ancestors. That's become maybe a little bit faded out with some branches of Wicca, but with traditional witchcraft, that's a really big part of it. That's a big part of a lot of magical traditions. And also nature spirits, which the Fae would be included in that, among many, many others. I was actually watching a video on TikTok. I wish I remembered the word, but the individual was talking about basically African fairies that were their nature spirits who gave humanity fire, which is just, I need to hear that story.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered the question. There's like, it's so hard to pin down because there's, you know, and then like you said, underneath all of that is all the practices that we do. So there's the belief system, which is different for a bunch of different people. And then there's everybody's got kind of their niche as far as their talent. Like I happen to work with herbs and plants a lot. That's just my thing. It's what I'm easily drawn to. Other people might be more working with words. Words are extremely powerful. Others may be more working with divination. I also do divination. And these are all things that like can be part of your practice, but it's not like you don't have to do every single one of them, which I want everyone to know that. Anyone who's listening who's curious about witchcraft, who's starting out, you don't have to feel like you have to do everything and know everything and learn everything. It can be helpful to know some things that are, you know, related to your particular interests, but you are created with your own special skill, just like a musician or a mathematician within witchcraft.
And so a lot of, you know, in heading to that, like you have a group that you created, and I think it's pretty interesting to me because there's a lot of people in your group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whether they're, you know, here now or there, you know, I it's curious because I you know, I was like amazed how many people were in your group, right? And how many people came on the group today.
Right.
You know? So and the group is called I'm High and This is Witchcraft.
Yeah.
And in that group, why did you kind of combine? I mean, you know, we talk about Cali Cocktail Hour. Cali Cocktail Hour is a combination of weed and red wine, and you know, but that's a different. You know, that was my artistic mode of creating art, right? But so I'm High and This is Witchcraft. How would you describe that group itself?
So first, there's a lot of I'm High groups. There's, you know, I'm High and This is Charcuterie. I'm High and This is Interior Decor.
I had no idea until I signed up for yours. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm High and everything, kind of. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. And so I hadn't seen one for witchcraft, so I created that. And it's grown far beyond I anticipated in
Yeah,
only
I
5
would
years.
say so.
And so I've been kind of scrambling to curate it. Like in the beginning, I thought, oh, I'll have time to, put certain things together. But my personal main goal with it is to bring education and encouragement to each other. And sometimes that comes in the form of challenging education. Like today, we talked about the sort of subversive racism and referring to white magic versus black magic. And other times we get to talk about more fun things like what kind of herbs do you like to put in your weed blend to, and what do they do for you? Like bringing visions or helping you be calm or peaceful. So the education part is, for me, that's the big thing that I really want to be able to bring to people is the things I've learned and the people I'm connected with to the group.
And Raven, can you show the link to the site? I know you have it here somewhere, but I joined. I think everyone should get on there and join because.
Well, this is the group. So
on Facebook, correct?
Yes, on Facebook. Yeah. So this is the group, and like I said, I looked through. There's a lot of different questions, a lot of different subjects, and I know you do a lot of different live streams too, which are subject based, right? The last one was on sage. I that I looked at too, and she was indigenous from South Dakota, I believe.
Yes.
It's interesting. Yeah, interesting like conversations too about that too. So, and there's a lot of interesting conversations just in a group itself, right?
Yeah.
Trying to maintain a group that big, and you have all kinds of questions. So, it is anybody out there who's interested. Yeah, that is type in I'm high and this is witchcraft. I also know that you have another group too, or was it merchandising?
Parallel to I'm high and this is witchcraft, I have merchandise under the term weed, love, and witchcraft. And part of why I chose that was because I'd actually thought about weed, love, and witchcraft long before I made this group.
Yeah.
And I kept being like, oh, I gotta make that a shirt. That's such a good idea. But it's also easier to say as far as when you're branding something.
Yeah.
Weed, love, witchcraft is pretty simple versus I'm high and this is witchcraft sounds more like an NPR show. I'm high and this is witchcraft.
I would listen to that show, by the way. I really would. So.
Now,
and then we do have your Facebook handle here too, so people can come up on Facebook and we'll go back to what you sell and everything else after Heather has her question.
I'm just so excited. I just want to know, so you said you work with plants and medicines and different things in your personal, what do you call that? Witchery?
Witchery is a great word for it.
Witchery. Okay.
Witchery, yeah.
And so is marijuana a part of that equation?
For me, it 100% is. And I would say a lot of folks don't even know the expansive historic ritual use of marijuana. It's been found in Hebrew temples. It has been found in Hindu temples. It's been found all over the Middle East and parts of Asia. It's native to Southeast Asia. And in the Bible, it was referred to as the balm of Gilead, which is a medicine that would bring you complete peace. I think we can all agree to that. And for everybody, the amazing thing about it is that it has so many uses. It can be medicinal for your body. It can be medicinal for your mind. It can help you transcend into, a whole new mindset. And for me, it's also a part of my, if I really need to go into a place where I can very clearly hear spirit, because for all of us, chatter, as we might call the monkey brain, is, talker is always going.
Yes.
And it gives me kind of, even though my, it'll still be kind of rolling, you're still hearing things kind of more clearly. And it really cuts down the time on that when you just, instead of sitting there for an hour, it's like 15 minutes of, that was fast.
See, I told you, Heather, a long time ago. Right? Yeah. Well, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Like I said, it's now that it's funny because now that weed is like legal, it's a whole different story, right? Now it's like it's medicine, right?
Right.
Back then it was like, what are you doing?
Right.
And but it's good because I think long time ago when I was a kid, my mom, stepmom was from Mexico, and I found some weed one time. I found an eighth, a green bud, and she's like, "Give it to me." I'm like, "Okay." I don't know what to. And she put it in alcohol, and she said, "We use in Mexico to, as an herb to heal our body." And I was like,
Mhm.
I was a little bit out of my league at that point. I'm like, "Why don't you smoke it?" But she was putting it and rubbing alcohol
Yeah.
and making,
Like
something
a
like that.
tincture.
And
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, okay,
Right.
now that I
When you
know, I'm
make
like,
your Cali cocktail, are you infusing the wine with the bud?
no, I'm just
Okay.
like, you know,
Okay.
so
You're just like,
I
okay.
do have,
I
yeah,
wasn't sure there. And, both sound great. So,
yeah. Well, I do have the perfect, you can go overboard too. So like I'm creating artwork. I'm like, oh, I'm done.
right.
I'm gonna go over here. Yeah. So yeah, so it's perfect. Yeah. And like I said, thank you for coming out too. And this is awesome because there's a lot of questions. I mean, we can go deep into witchcraft and
Feel free.
just yeah, in general. So I know Heather has tons of questions.
I'm bursting at the seams. I just want to know, like, what is a day in the life for you? Like, you offer these services to help people.
Hmm.
Um,
So for
Yeah,
me, as a professional witch, it's very different because so for me, I not that I would want it any other way, but I don't have the option of not doing my daily work because if I'm not in connection with spirit, if my foundation is not strong, if I'm not spiritually clean, I can't do that work. I can't come to the table and if I'm not connected with spirit, then I'm not doing anything. I'm just lighting candles and hoping it goes somewhere. Not that can work. It's just the the effectiveness, the directness of it, the clarity of it is different. So for me, I wake up. I always drink a glass of water first thing because it's really good for your brain and your body. Um, at some point in the morning, it's kind of I'm kind of a go with the flow morning person. So like if I need my tea first, I'll do that. If I need to do something, this. But I make a point of meditating every morning starts meditating with the elements.
yeah,
I do the elemental blessing, which is just a really short ritual with salt water and candle and incense, and you're just like cleansing and charging yourself for the day. I align my three souls of body, mind, and spirit. I do what's called the Kala rite, which is a method of cleansing and setting your intentions. And I finish that up by having a chat with my ancestors and praying to my saints. That's like a whole other thing is like Catholic witches that's like
yeah.
a whole other side of the
Well,
wow.
I think we're all interested in that too. And like I said, a lot of the, especially now during the pandemic, and people are alone with themselves, right? They
Mhm,
have more time, and as we're heading out of it, right, so to speak.
mhm,
Um, what does a witch do for to get into that moment? I know you're explaining some stuff
mhm,
that you do now, like right now, I've set my alarm for 4 o'clock every day to remind myself to take a deep breath and recenter
mhm,
myself for a um like for the day, right?
mhm,
How, as a witch, and then I say that because I want to say like how do you do that? How do you
mhm,
reset your day for that? Or how do you, what you're explaining right now, I think
mhm,
being in the moment and,
mhm,
because I do in the morning, I do intentions and I do,
mhm.
smiling and stuff like that, to get my day going. But, what else, do you do? Because, we all have like our own thing that we do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and this is not even being cavalier. Weed
Yeah.
is a part of that for me,
Yeah.
where like if I'm feeling anxious or angry, I can even take the tiniest bit, and part of it is the breath, part of it is like the ritual of like of putting it in here and taking a breath, inhaling and holding the breath and exhaling. That's a small thing I do when I need to. The other thing is just practicing good thoughts when I catch myself in a cycle of overthinking, something someone said that I don't even like. If I don't like something someone said, why am I still thinking about it?
Yes.
That's such a waste of time and energy.
Yeah.
Just like be mindful with my thought processes. And it also helps me that anytime I'm making something, I need to be in the mindset of what energy I'm putting into that thing, even if it's food. Like, I want to put good energy into my body. If I'm cleaning my house, I want to put love into my home.
Oh, that's a really great way to put it. I could really see that, right? Like, and I hadn't put much thought into that. Like when you're cleaning your house, like infusing that with love. Like that was really well said. Like in intentionality, like setting your house up that way, setting your work up that way, setting your food up that way, like anything you're ingesting. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's great because I think that, a lot of us, when I create some artwork, I really depends on how I feel and what music I listen to. Usually I listen to music with no words because I don't want to have that influence of people, because I we all pick up things that we don't even think we do, right?
Yeah.
And so to set that group of like, okay, this is going to be, a meditative piece. Well, I want to be peaceful when I'm doing it. This one's going to be, a Mexican piece, right? So I better put on some fucking music. No, just kidding.
You're doing
getting in there. Yeah. And so, we have, hey, Lynn will be a co-host next Friday. An awesome artist too. Well, we have Joya Fonda next week on Friday, Cali Cocktail Hour, and then Uli is running late, but he's been looking forward to this. So you're a little bit late, Uli. So, but you're good. All right, we're good now. So we're gonna play a little bit of we talked about. I think Alyssa and I talked about earlier this week about people listening to each other and kind of like, trying to communicate. Right? It's like it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be like overly communicated. You just got to be nice and you got to be cool and you have to be, this is one practice that I try to do. And it's compassionate listening. And it's with Thich Nhat Hanh and Oprah talking about it. Thich Nhat Hanh goes into a really deep Buddhist kind of deal. So you got to kind of like decipher stuff. But she's really good at that. She's really good at bringing it to a realm. But, and I think the lost art of listening to people, right? We always have to have our opinions about something when people are reaching out to us. So, hey, Kelly, how you doing?
Love to be technically right.
Yeah, always, right? And no matter what. And like when you talked about like when someone said something to us last week and we still dwell on it, right?
Yeah.
And who is it hurting? It's hurting us, not them. Because they probably forgot all about it, right? It's just we're traumatizing ourselves over it. Because I do that a lot. I'm like, why the fuck am I thinking about this right now when this person's probably already done, right? They're done.
Especially if you're an asshole all the time, then it's just another day, another asshole,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
I had a teacher give me a visualization for that exact thing, which was that you're carrying that person on your back, like piggyback style. And as you keep gathering people on your back, like how long are you going to carry them through your week with you, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Free yourself.
Yeah, and everybody out there, thank you for coming to Cali Cocktail Hour, and it's great to have you, Alyssa. Great to have you, Heather. It's great to have this conversation because I think we'll probably this will be one of a series of conversations that we have with you too, because it's also you're also an awesome person too, and so and learning more about witchcraft and about these modalities too. Of the more and more I search for my roots, I find different things that I come across. So it's to me it's interesting to learn about anything too. You know what I mean? Like in different people and how we communicate with each other. So let me bring this on, and after this, we want to bring on your shop that you have too, and this will be played over. It's a live stream, but most people will see the live stream afterwards too, and that's when they see it the most too. But they see it because something could go wrong, like my commercial that happened in the very beginning, or this and that. So everybody, we love you. Thank you for coming out for Cali Cocktail Hour. We are going to go to some deep, compassionate listening from Thich Nhat Hanh and Oprah, which is one of my favorites. So I love women energy, and I try to bring it up as much as I can. So let's go here.
But you talk about deep listening also.
Deep listening is the kind of listening that can help relieve the suffering of the other person. we can call it compassionate listening. You listen with only one purpose, help him or her to empty his heart. And if you remember that you are helping him or her to suffer less, and then even if he say things full of wrong perceptions, full of bitterness, you are still capable to continue to listen with compassion. Because you know that listening like that, with compassion, you give him or her a chance to suffer less. If you want to help him or her to correct his perception, and then you wait for another time, but for this, the time being, you just listen with compassion and help him or her to suffer less. And 1 hour like that can bring transformation and healing.
So I love this idea of deep listening, because oftentimes when someone comes to you and they want to really vent, they want to purge whatever is going on inside them, people start talking and giving advice. So if you allow the person just to let whatever those feelings are to come out, and then at another time come back to them with your advice or your comments, you would experience a deeper healing. That's what you're saying.
Yes, the fear, the anger, and the despair is born on the ground of wrong perception. And we have wrong perceptions concerning ourselves and the other person. And that is the foundation for conflict and war and violence.
You've said that the only way we can begin to end war is due to communication between people.
Yes. And we should be able to say like this, dear friends, dear people, I know that you suffer a lot. I have not understood enough of your difficulties and suffering. It's not our intention to make you suffer more. It is the opposite. So please tell us about your suffering, your difficulties. I'm eager to learn, to understand. It has to start like that, loving speech. And if we are honest, if we are true, they will open their heart and tell us. And then we practice compassionate, deep listening. And during the process of deep listening, we can learn so much about our own perception and their perceptions. And that is the best way, the only way to remove terrorism.
Terrorism, or even difficulties between yourself and
Yes.
family members or friends.
Yes,
And the principle is the same no matter the conflict.
yes,
Terrorists, anti-terrorists,
Yes.
father and son,
right,
yourself and your boss,
right,
yourself and your children, your best friend.
yes.
And then we're back.
Loved that.
So yeah, and like I said, a lot of times is people want us to listen, right?
Mhm.
And it is hard to sometimes take it from people, but if we have the ability to sit back and listen, a lot of times, that's what people want, right?
Mhm.
And as a guy, I know, because guys are always about fixing something, right? They never listen. I'll fix it, right? So, but yeah. So we'll go on from that too, and we have a comment here, and Kelly Bennett said, "Deep, yes, I love you, Kelly, too." And Lynn said, "I really love that too," and and we talk about that, like how, especially during the age of social media, right, where we don't listen to anybody, we just
Mhm.
like we pounce on everybody. What I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's not. I mean, I don't like it because I'm not very good at, number one. Anybody out there, I'm not good at texting. Okay, I'm a talker. I over text now. I'm trying to fix that. Where you're like, the people, people like the person that always says one sentence too many. You're like, oh, it's a great, oh, great, we had a great communication, blah, blah, blah. And then they say that one, like, they'll say one sentence. You're like,
And you're
fuck,
like,
did you really have to say that? Because you just fucking blew everything that you said. That's kind of where I'm trying to stop my texting. Like, but I really, really love you. I'm like, right? And so
I think he's talking about me.
no, I'm just saying, like, that's really how I am, and I actually talked to you about Alyssa about one, like my problem is I care too much about people, and I have to stop, and I say that in a good way, because then it irritates everybody, right? You're like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, so I'm out. Anybody out there? If I over text you, it's me trying to communicate, actually. So, but I'm also I learned to listen to people. And I've learned to like just sit back and, and even if they say something mean to me, or like, this conversation that we have, I know that number one, if you don't react to them, they're always going to regret it. 99% of the time, they're going to call you and say, hey, I'm sorry what I said to you yesterday, But if you're also willing to sit in there and just listen to that one sentence, that what they really hurt about, then, then you're like, okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
Because we're more active, like to be reactive, like you can't say that to me. And then, so, but, also like I said, in this social media, a part of like people just, they want to put, you want to put out your opinion. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's also great if you listen too.
Yeah. One of the things I see a lot of is when you can kind of see when someone was formulating their answer before they finished reading what you were saying, which I don't remember which teacher it was that talks about this, but there was a teacher that said, like, if you are thinking about what you're going to say, you aren't listening to what they're saying to you.
Yeah.
And I just see this so much on social media when someone's like, I just have to say blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, if you read the thing, you would know we're all in agreement here.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I've seen some, social media things that I'm like, okay, they didn't even say that, but yet you already have your fixed opinion on that, which is also another way of, it's going to be another, I think, way of learning too, right? Because I think in Thich Nhat Hanh's way, he's actually talking about a conversation with somebody, right?
Yeah.
And we're not doing conversations with anybody right now.
Yeah, it's like we're just reacting.
Yeah.
And like it can cause a conversation, but sometimes it's just like and that's something I see too, is like he talks about wounds and how they're suffering.
Yeah.
And I think people reacting is also often from a place of suffering. Like when we bring up sage and people get bent out of shape and they say, well, there's a lot of different kinds of sage and there's European sage and I'm allowed to grow it and burn it. Yes, that's what we said. But I understand that you're coming from a place of injury and that's why you feel upset and why it's hard for you to listen to this, because you feel injured by something that happened to you that has nothing to do with what I just said.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually like those points are, of something that we went through, right?
Yeah.
My dad used to treat me that way. So don't ever say that to me. Right. Like, don't, what you're, and we also emote what our parents do to us. Right.
Yes.
Even though we try not to, like, I always told my dad, I'm like, I don't want to borrow any money because, I'm going to hear about it for 2 years. So I'd rather suffer. Right. Because I'm like, do you remember that $10 I gave you a month? Dude, that was like 20 years ago. And that was like, that was a gift.
Here's $50. Get out of here.
Yeah. So, So, yeah. So, Heather, do you have?
I was just thinking about that. I think that not just that, but also I think if you're a person that suffers from anxiety, sometimes you're pre-preparing your response for when it's your turn, so much so that your anxiety is taking over and you're not listening because you're in your own mind trying to figure out what you're going to say when it's your turn. So there's some of that. Just I liked that video a lot, in that just in deep listening, if you really take that to heart, it can release you from having to know what to say. You can just be present, right? You can be present and hear what the other person has to say and have a natural reaction, hopefully relieving some of that anxiety.
Yes, that's what I feel. That's why I didn't answer right now. I'm just deep listening.
I'm just deep listening.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And like I said, I would like to thank everybody for coming out to Cali Cocktail Hour. And we are streaming to your group too. So, but I would love to, have you come back and, do another round, because there's so many different questions that we have for you, and so many different, like, we're going deeper, but, and also I want to bring up your Etsy store. And you do tarot readings, and I know I see you on Instagram doing these. And what days do you do that on too?
So most Mondays, I do a week to come reading where it'll be 3 different cards. You pick one card, and that's going to be your card for the week.
Yeah.
And so funny, like sometimes I think in tarot, like when Heather was talking, I was like, Three of Swords. It becomes like this other part of my brain. But that's on Mondays, the week to come tarot readings. And then my one-on-one sessions are $60 for a half hour, $100 for a full hour. But I am offering a special discount to those who are watching this until Sunday. So everything in the shop is 25% off with the code Cali Cocktail. And that includes the readings, which is 25% off, $60 is nothing to shake a stick at.
Yeah. Well, you didn't say the reading, so I brought up some stuff that we have for sale too, and also we're gonna have to shoot this too into your group, because Facebook does this kind of strange thing sometimes where it cuts off the algorithms into the store too. But
Oh, okay.
you can rebroadcast it too, but to get a better what do you call it, view of everything else too.
Okay.
But besides that, we do have your store and some of the stuff that you have to sell, because I want to. I looked a little bit, but I don't like to look too much, because I want to, I want a natural reaction to what you have to sell and stuff like that. So this is your Instagram handle we have on the bottom right there, and I've seen you do a lot of live streams on there too, and tarot readings. And what days were those again?
Mondays, 6 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, is that what PST means?
I'm
dyslexic, so
I also know it as Pagan Standard Time.
There you go. There you go. This is the truth. This is what we love. We bring out the truth, right?
I feel like Ruben should have a whole segment with you on debunking myths. Like there is a really, as I was studying, he said like, do you want to come on and co-host where I'm interviewing this good witch? And I was like, oh my God, I'm so fascinated. And so I went online and I was kind of researching just witching in general. And there's all kinds of sections on magical morality. There's the pentagram, which, can be associated with Satanism, and just all those debunking of what people might think of as good or bad. So a burning desire question I have for you is if you have a familiar.
So this is a hotly debated topic.
Okay, great.
This is the gotcha question. Heather, I told not till the very end.
It's funny because this actually comes up in the group quite a bit. And I don't actually have an opinion on it yet, but so traditionally, a familiar was actually a spirit who was a shapeshifter. Basically, they could change into different shapes. Sometimes it was a cat, sometimes it was an imp, and somehow over time, it's come to be associated with your pet. But the original intent of a familiar was that they would do basically your chores, your medical chores for you. And they could also be used to take a hit if you were being attacked. If you were in a witch war and being attacked by another witch, they could take the hit for you. So now folks will say that, their pets are their familiars. And some people have a problem with this because of the traditional definition that if you call your pet your familiar, they're going to end up taking a hit for you, which I understand that, but I also think, as long as you're not pissing off someone who's got a whole lot of power, then it's not really a problem. I don't have so much of an opinion on that, but I have, there was a spirit who was formerly attached to my German family line, who I believe may have been a familiar. And I released them from their charge because they'd been ignored for so long that they were starting to cause problems. And I didn't want to keep them in debt to me. It's not something I would want to do. And funny enough, when you do that for a spirit, they suddenly are willing to do things for you anyways.
So let me ask a question on that. We talked about, I know that in your group, we talked about playing with things that we don't know, right?
Yeah.
So when I was in Cuba, I had broken with a girlfriend. I'm like, I want to go get back together. And in Cuba they had this miracle worker that she was. You would go there and ask for fertility. You'd ask for because what happened was that she was buried in this cemetery, and then her I think her baby died when it was born, and so when they went back there, they had to dig her up for some reason. The baby was with her, right? So, but it became this like really
Oh,
big, like almost like a pilgrimage where people would come from all over the world and ask for. It became
right.
a symbol of fertility, right? And so people would come and leave offerings, right, and pray, and that I want to have a child, and people would have children, and they would send these back these. So it was a big, like, they would send back these things. Thank you so much. I had a child. These people
Mhm.
that weren't able to have children. So I went there one time, and I'm like, I'm gonna go and ask for like my girlfriend back. I think of what it was. So I went back there, and and I came back, and I did not have like a good a good couple of months, right? And I was like, what is going on there? I just felt so crazily worried about stuff. I'm not crazy, but just felt like there was something attached to me,
Mhm.
right? And my friend who was a medicine worker, she's like, let me try something, and she did the medicine wheel, and she did a ceremony, and she's like, hey, so I see I see a stone, I see I see a woman attach you with love, but it's a different kind of love, right? It's not a healthy love. It's like, so did you do anything that was like like and did you go anywhere or do anything that was, something you shouldn't have done? I'm like, I did go to the cemetery, and she's like, you can't. She's like, you can't do that. You can't just go
Yeah.
somewhere where you don't know where you're going and what you're asking for, right? And so we had to do a ceremony where we had to say, I had to say thank you so much for trying to help me, but I don't need your help right now, right? Can you, maybe release yourself from me, right? And I think we talked about. I mean, not you and I, but in not messing with things that you don't know,
Yeah.
right? And we talked about sage or
Mhm.
these other herbs too, because we know we all have, like, and we talk about indigenous. Indigenous doesn't mean like native. It means like where your family is
For
from.
your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where your family. It means indigenous to where. And I talked to my friend who is from Germany, and this is my friend right here, Uli Mueller, and Guten Abend, but he's German. So, but we talked about this, right? About like his, in Germany they have, I mean, well, you're
Uh-huh.
European, right? But messing with things that you don't know
Yeah.
about, right? Or using powers that you don't know, you're gonna unleash something on yourself. And I learned that myself as
Yeah.
as a lesson. So I think that that my lesson learned. I you know um, I appreciated what this being or spirit was trying to help me,
Right.
right? But it became a strange kind of help, and I,
Hmm.
I do accept that too,
Yeah.
right? But like I said, you just can't really mess with things you don't know about or what you're asking
Hmm.
for. You just got to be careful. I was respectful,
Hmm.
but I wasn't careful.
Yes. And that's also like the great testament to, I know some people are getting upset that I say this.
That's okay. We're
So
here. We got you.
everyone, not everyone, there's a lot of people who say, oh, it's your intentions that matter as long as your intentions are good. A lot of terrible things have been done in the world with what people thought were good intentions and came
Yeah.
out all wrong because they didn't understand what they were doing. And that's a really good example of that, because it's also like when you part one is that sure your intentions are fine, but like it's like going into it's like just going into the wrong tool store and coming back with a
Yes.
saw when you wanted a knife. And then the other part too is it's just ignoring traditional knowledge when we say, oh, it's just intention is all that matters. When you don't know, like, to ignore traditional knowledge to me is like saying, oh, like, kind of fuck you to the ancestors who spent
Yeah. Yeah.
lifetimes honing what this plant does, or that this spirit does, or this spirit that's attached to this plant, like sweetgrass and white buffalo woman. And you want to be cautious when you're
Yeah.
calling something in.
Yeah. And it reminded me of what your live stream with
Yeah,
about sage, right? And I was like, oh, I did that before. I I lived that through. I was
right.
like, and I had to, like, well, like I said, and Ruby's here too, and she says, haha, strange kind of help. Yeah, wrong kind of help. I even had a little Buddhist that I put on the symbol that I put onto the grave itself. I'm like, okay, and but
Now I'm
you know,
nervous because
I've
I've smudged every house I ever lived in. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do wrong or not?
Well, so it's interesting that you bring that up. My understanding of so there's different kinds of sage too. Is the thing.
yeah,
There's white
yeah,
sage, there's Artemisian prairie sage, and then there's sagebrush, which is really common from from California over to Colorado, and then it becomes the prairie sage. They do different things because they're from different territories. They have different qualities. My understanding of white sage is that it is, and that's one of the herbs from my Yaqui tribe, is that it's for lifting up your prayers to spirit.
Mm.
You do use it to balance yourself, but whether or not it clears a space, there's other herbs that do that better. That's all that, like, coming to an understanding of how those things all work. And it's like alchemy. There's different herbs you put together for different ceremonies that together they do something else, or they do something greater.
yeah. And I've learned, like I said, Ruby says, ask permission.
Mm-hmm.
I did ask permission, but I asked the wrong person, right? I asked the wrong spirit for the wrong thing. And I mean, I did, it was just, and I did need a medicine woman to help me, to say, discontinue that kind of help, right? And I learned my lesson myself as a personal thing too. And I've been to Oaxaca. I've been to different parts of what do you want to say, like what mushrooms are, like mushrooms. And like, hey Ruben, I want to take you, my friends who's Mixteco, he's like, I want to take you up to the mountains and have you take some mushrooms. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready. Maybe when I was younger I didn't think about it so much, but now that I know, I'm afraid to open that universe up, right? Because but I'm gonna have to have a guide next time I do this, right? Because we're gonna go places, and but they're so they're that's part of their tradition too. You have Maria Savina who taught all the beatnik poets, how to take Walt Disney, like all these people that that she taught about how to in that whole realm too, so but it's interesting, we talk about this too because and I do, when I look back at your live stream with I don't know, I forgot her name.
Corrine Rice.
Yeah. So Uli says, I am scared of dying. I'm not scared of dying because I am going to die. So it's normal that we all, it is normal. And I'm not sort of scared about dying myself because it's going to happen. So what can I do about it? Right. I'm not going to worry about it. But what I'm more afraid of living, in a sense too.
I think transcendence can be scarier than dying sometimes.
Yeah. I went to a place and they called Nagual, which was like it was a tomb, and it was in Oaxaca. And I said, hey, it was ruins, and it was in the mountains, fucking beautiful. Just you walk up the mountains, you hike, but you see all these tombs of this indigenous the Zopotec. And I was like, hey, I'm asking a question. I'm like, do you ever hear anything that's strange? He's like, yeah, we hear drumming all the time up there, right? We hear drumming, and we hear like, there's no one up there. And I'm like, well, because I believe in spirits. That's just what I believe in. So I said, okay. So he said, what about this little? It was a frog, right? He's like, it was a frog that was carved out. And I said, well, what's this frog have to do with anything? He's like, well, that's where they bring people, and I believe, I want to say the right term, Nagual, which is a person that becomes an animal spirit. Right? And she's like, we've seen them turn into Nahuals and all this stuff, and it's all just natural. Like they just talk, in Mexico they just talk about like it's a matter of okay, and I'm like, and coming from America, right? It's like you have that like, no, it's got to be 3D, right? If it's not 3D, it doesn't right?
I'm imagining now why you don't want to take mushrooms? Like you're like, I'm
Well,
not ready to turn into
no,
my spirit.
yeah, because the thing is, like, we're going into the mountains of Oaxaca. We're going to the mountains of
Right.
Mexico, and not that yeah, I'm afraid of that, but a little bit, right? Because I will become another being.
I
I
was
will
going
see
to say, I
things.
think it's attachment. Like
Yeah.
for me, I've been hearing I have a lot of friends that microdose, and but I've been reading a lot about mushrooms and their healing effects. And so they will take large doses to have this transformational experience. And I think somewhat my both excitement and trepidation is going somewhere and not being able to come back, right? And that's just my attachment to the here and now and things. And so it's fascinating, that discovery that happens in the multiverse.
And so, I know that we're gonna go to your what you sell too, and this is a good segue into it, right? Because you have to have that. I mean, like you talk about intention, or you talk about like this, these spirits that you don't, because it is like you're calling on these things to help you, right? Is you're calling on energy wise, or um, these things that within our own indigenous blood, whether it's European indigenous, whether it's Mexican indigenous, Northern American indigenous, like we all have, South American, right? That's a whole different ball game, right? Of like, what we believe in and sort of stuff like that too. So, so we're going to go back to your shop now.
All right.
And so you have a Etsy shop, right? And we're going to go over because people are joining more, which always happens, but because you also sell candles. You sell. We'll go to your website too, but I'm going to bring up some stuff that you do sell, and we do have a discount for you. So that's an awesome part, right? So I've looked at what you sell too on this stuff. So let's bring this up too real quick too. Your Etsy store is coming up too right now, but this is the three things that you sell, and you have 25% off through Sunday for Cali Cocktail Hour. So let's go on the left. Yeah.
So on the left we have, and these are just three of many things.
Yes.
So we have a cedar and rose bundle. The cedar is wild-crafted windfall cedar, and by that I mean after a storm, I went out and I looked for wind-fallen branches or herbs. Cedar was one of the things that came to me. Pine was another, and olive was another one. So I took the cedar and made these bundles with organic rose. And I call these ones Strength and Beauty because they combine the emboldening and strong power of cedar. Cedar is also a really important offering plant in many cultures. And the beauty of rose. Rose is used in a lot of secret societies, including and especially Rosicrucianism, that represents wisdom, strength, and beauty all together. And these can be burned as an offering or burned for blessing yourself, especially good for self-love. Our one on the middle there, and these are the bundles are $8, but with that code, the Cali Cocktail, everything's 25% off. An additional 25%
Yeah,
off.
there you go.
So in the middle, we have our Siren Candle, which is also now called Sirena, as I've decided to alter that name just a little bit. This particular candle is for bewitching energy. And a lot of people mistake that for when you're like wanting to bewitch a specific person, which, as Ruben has mentioned, the dangers of that practice. This can also be used though if you want to kind of surround yourself with that sort of bewitching quality, even as a way of bewitching yourself for self-love. I used bewitching oils for many years when I needed confidence. It's also great if you are a performer or an online personality. If you want to send out kind of that quality to your audience, and that magical, very mysterious quality that draws people in. It's also really good if you own a business and you want to attract more people to your business. And those ones are already 25% off. So if you use the code, you get a total of 50% off, making it a $10 candle versus a $20 candle.
Oh, wow.
So those are on special right now, and they have a really nice floral and spicy scent. Very attractive, as they should be. And then on our far right here, we have what's called the Devil's Pod, or a bat nut. Also in its natural name, it's the water caltrop. It's related to the water chestnut. And these are used in modern magic for things like Run Devil Run, for protection. You'll find them used in a lot of Southern root work. And of course, they're called the devil pot or the bat nut because it's got a little face on it that looks like either a fruit bat or a little demon.
Yeah.
Some folks will put them above their door jamb or carry them with them. These are $6 each, and I have a whole lot of them. They're actually really hard to find. So when I found them, I bought all of them.
Yeah, I did see a whole bunch of pictures of them. So
Yeah.
well, right on. So let me go back here. So everybody can buy, at your shop right there too, and we'll put up your link tree up there too, on there. The bundle. How would you burn? How would you? Because I'm smart, but sometimes I'm not that smart. I will admit this. But how do you burn it too? Because I burned copal, and it took me a while to to put the charcoal and the copal because, when I go to Oaxaca for Dia de los Muertos, it's all copal, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how to burn it. Sometimes I ask my friend, I'm like, hey, Teresa, I'm like, hey, so how do I really do this? Because, do I just like light it and, how do I apply it?
Or do you light it?
What's that?
So do you use those little briquettes?
I do, but I do lift the briquettes, and it takes me a little bit to figure it out. But in this, in your particular one that you made, how do you what's the process of that?
So with these kinds of bundles,
Yeah.
you can do it a couple of ways. So one of the ways people will use it is actually you can break it down, and this will make it last longer. I think initially why our ancestors were doing this was just because this is easier to carry.
Okay.
To have it wrapped up like this, but now we tend to use it. I'll use my rosemary that's already been lit here, but we use it, in a bundle like this, and you can hold it over a flame. I usually use a candle just so I'm not using up my lighter, and so it's a natural flame too. You'll want to have a dish to catch the ash, and some herbs tend to smolder, and others tend to kind of crackle, pop, and go out. Cedar is a crackle pop herb, so it'll give you a big plume of smoke and then it'll go out, which is fine. That's just what it does. So you can either use that plume to wash it over yourself, or lift up a prayer that you want to speak to your ancestors, guides, gods, guardians. And part of why this is called Strength and Beauty is also because I grew up in a Masonic household, and one of the three tenets of Freemasonry is wisdom, strength, and beauty. And to me, anytime two of those are present, the third one is present automatically. And so that's why this is strength and beauty, and rose and cedar also have a really important place in Freemasonry. So you can wave that over yourself. As far as using this for cleansing, you could, but it's, that's not totally what it's for. It's more like sealing yourself with a blessing.
Well, which is like, I think it's just, to me, it's fascinating to know that there's different things for different, because, people are like, well, I got sage. I'm like, I'm just going to cleanse the house, right? That's what I'm going to do. Right. You're like, okay, well, and it's cool to learn different things, that there is different things for different herbs, for different, things that we have to, what do you call it? Someone help me out here, Heather.
Different things for different needs.
Yes, there you go. There it is. That's what I'm trying for. I'm like, I'm dying here. Someone help me out. Yeah. So, but it's great to learn. I know that there is so much to learn, and there's so much to digest too in this stuff. So I'm really glad that you're here, and I really would love to come back and have, because obviously after the show we're gonna like, I wish I would ask you this question. I wish I would have done this. I wish we would have done, because it is true.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put the yoga community under the bus, but all this mindfulness stuff and all this this stuff, like it becomes more of a marketing thing, but rather than like, okay, what are we really trying to achieve here, right? You can say, you can have a cute tag, you can have whatever you want, but if you're gonna get into herbs, or like I said, I only say this because I learned my lesson. I learned it the hard way. Unfortunately, that's how I learned, the hard way. So I learned I went to, I'm able to go. I went to a Santeria church in Cuba, and I was like, okay, well, hi, I'm like, I'm able to say hi to everybody. And every time I still talk to all the, when I go to Mexico, when I go to this, I take a lot of pictures of cemeteries. And what I say, thank you very much for letting me come here and let me take a picture of you. Don't attach yourself to me. I'm good.
Don't attach
right?
yourself to me.
No, I do. I'm like, I love you guys, and I understand, but I've learned that from Cuba.
Yeah.
Because I've been to some places where I'm like, I can feel the energy, right? And I'm like, I can feel like, my friends in Oaxaca who taught me a lot of things about like in that, realm of like, they believe in elves. They believe in like, like they're like, don't go up to that mountain. I'm like, why? Because they're, they're protecting that side. I'm like, we don't go after the sun goes down. I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Right.
So was witchcraft always associated with spirits? Or like, I notice a lot of our conversation there have been spirits, talking to spirits, your ancestors, spirits in the forest, and I just wonder, a lot of that has come up for me as well. Like, I know Ruben because he was my first roommate, and we lived in a house that had a spirit present in it, and it's interesting to talk about witchcraft and then have spirits arise. Is that like an essential part of the mix, or?
It's funny, like when you asked that, I immediately went to ask my ancestors. I was like, I don't know, is that true? Which was so funny. He was like, that was my brain. Like, you can't tell me. I don't know. I wasn't there.
That's really funny.
My feeling on that would be, well, so as a way of like defining this, like spirits to witches can be different than they might be to other religions, in the sense that like you don't have to believe in God to be a witch. That's a very unique quality, I think, about witchcraft. A lot of witches do celebrate deities. They might be working with a pantheon, an ancient pantheon, and like I said, some of us pray to saints, which is one of the more modern pantheons. But first and foremost, it's very nature-based, and there's definitely a belief that there are, it's not that there just are spirits, it's that everything is spirit. And like we're living in this dense jelly where magic and energy is so close to everything and so interconnected, in what folks might call the flower of life. And I think when we tend to imagine that, we think it's like, oh, I'm connected to this plant right here and I'm connected to the sun. And it's like, no, this cell is connected to this cell, is connected to this cell. And it's that denseness, like a jelly. And I think definitely speaking to ancestors, or like, being aware that like there's afterlife spirits is a pretty common thing. I think nature spirits and ancestors are probably the most common.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's all like your personal flavor, like I said, with like saints or your personal pantheon and your culture.
I love the jelly description.
Yeah, it's like an aspic. We're all just like
right?
an aspic of magic.
Yeah, and cell to cell. That's very visual. I like that. That's very cool.
I want to go back to Ruby's. If you want to use these herbs in nutrition, go to the source, right?
Yeah.
Or learn what you're going to do, right? And ask for permission, right?
Yes.
And and like I said, I think she was talking this. It wasn't directed at you, but I love you, Ruby. So I'm not gonna take that. But to Disney housewives, and I think that, and I think that means like to marketing people, right? Because all this stuff is becoming very marketed too, right? It's becoming like
Yes.
everything's a marketing scheme nowadays, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but and also, like I said, guides. You know,
Mhm.
we talk about guides, and I've had many guides in my life, right? And do you see like so guides, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's okay to say, okay, well, I've thank you very much, right?
Mhm.
And I'm okay now. I'm gonna move
Yeah.
on, right? Um, and it's also one of those ones where it is kind of like scary in a sense. I grew up like that in my life, and if I look back in my life, my mom who raised me was into herbs, and I got a
Mhm.
tapeworm. Guess what? You're gonna drink this shit that tastes like shit, but it's gonna get out of you, right? It's all
Right?
herbs, right? Or you're gonna,
If you don't like it, think about the worm.
yes, and one day, I was talking about this stuff. I one day when I was a kid, all the women put all they're like, hey, this is the time where we need to protect you. So I remember all of us kids going into a circle, and the women made a circle around us and started to do these prayers and stuff like that to protect us. And I was like, I'm an American kid. Like I'm
Mhm.
not I'm not born in Mexico, right? I'm like, I have no idea what is going on, but I am going to stay in the circle around everybody. I'm going to be protected by women because I trust you. But I still don't understand, sometimes like what happened during that day,
Mhm.
right? But also I understand that is within my DNA to understand this, and I have studied it more.
Mhm.
But it is to me it's like always women are always like protecting everybody, and it's all Mother Earth magic, or what do you want to call it. It's always women that are that are always helping me out in that spiritual realm. And yeah, so, and maybe they're more attached to it, or maybe they're more like attached to the earth itself. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's. I definitely would not disagree uh, with a lot of that for sure. Um, in a lot of indigenous cultures, they say it's because we menstruate. So, like, anyone who menstruates, you have the power to cleanse yourself, and
Yeah.
that's pretty
Well, no,
crazy.
I understand that too, and I know that part too.
Yeah.
Do
The
hemorrhoids count?
what's that?
Do hemorrhoids count?
I don't
No,
know.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I had to like get that out there. That's just, no, but I
Oh my
do understand that part. I really do,
Yeah.
and that's why I give like really a lot of uh, f- uh, thought to women energy
Mhm.
and respect to women energy, because I think that's what we need now, and
Mhm.
we've lived on a love of male energy, and look where it got us, right? It got us in a really fucked up situation. So it's time for us as males, as the male energy, to let go and let women take over, as far as to heal the earth, because you are more attached to it than we are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, anyway, but I really, really love this conversation. I really love having this, conversation with, and you guys can bash me if you want to, as being a male, too. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you guys have your thing too. You know,
We're dudes.
you
That's what
do.
we do. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so when my friend Uli said you're scared of dying, and we all are, right? It's normal that we are, um, and you know, it is hard to get to that point of like we are all going to die at some
Mhm.
point, right? And what do we do, right? We live into this moment right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen, in a week from now. But I know what's going to happen at this moment in time when I'm talking to you two,
Mhm.
right? And when I go back to Oaxaca, we go for a Day of the Dead, and um, for me, I was, I don't want to, my mom died when I was born, so I feel a connection from life and death
Mhm.
together, right?
Mhm.
And because I know that my conversation with my mom was in the womb about who's going to survive, who's going to live, who's going to, and this thing, and so, but it's just one day I won't be here, and
Mhm.
I'm okay with that too. And one day, like I said, like it really depends on what we think about what's our kind of goal or roles in life right now, and I see you, Heather, is my, I've known Heather for over how many, I don't know how many
Probably
years.
30
I don't
years,
like time. Time is like,
right?
yeah, time is like, for me, it's like, okay, I know you tomorrow. Right.
Right.
And Alyssa, I know you as a great person, as a, as a beautiful energy. Right.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and so like, like, and when you're, like, I'm a witch, right? I
Mhm.
don't know what that means. Right. And I really, I mean that from the basic, most, but I, with the wanting to know,
Mhm.
and also wanting to really understand what's going on, and not, and because it is sometimes scary to some people when you say that, right? Or they
Mhm.
get like, oh my god, I don't know what to do, right? But also understanding like it's not what you think it is. It's not,
Right.
you're watching Netflix too much. You know what I
Right.
mean? Right? And we all have to understand each other,
Mhm.
and understand what we do and how we do it, and because like as a Mexican, you know, one first generation,
Mhm.
my parents or have already, we've gone into this before,
Mhm.
right? It's not that far away. So, but it's wonderful talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on and being honest and funny, and that's great. So,
Yeah, thank you. Oddly enough, I had just finished Lovecraft Country. I don't know if you've seen that show, but
Oh, I
it is
haven't
all.
on my list though.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I haven't yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah, it's all about witchcraft, and so it was interesting to get some of the real deal from you versus what you get in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. And so, what I want to bring up is your Etsy page,
Oh
because
yeah.
I really want people to see like where to go by, and I'm sure like a lot of people are out there, because I'm the same person too. When I see a live stream, I'm always just watching. Like I'm always listening, I don't know what to ask. I don't know what to do. Um, and as far as like a live stream, I know that people go back and watch over again what's going on
Mhm.
too. But I do want to bring up your store, because I looked on it, and there's a lot of stuff that's on there that I'm sure a lot of people will ask about, right? Um, of what to buy or what to do.
Mhm.
Now, when you do a tarot reading, um, what is the most basic question that you ask from them too? Because I am a little bit interested in that too. Like, like how would you do a tarot reading right now? So I'd say Heather, I said, hey, I have like life is something else. Like, what would be the? I think people are just are a little bit of afraid because they don't know, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or so
Well, and I always make a joke about that too. I say,
yeah,
don't worry, it's just your deepest, darkest secrets coming out, blah blah blah. And that's it. That's just a
yeah.
big joke. It's, I can't get into your deepest, darkest secrets in a few cards, but like I've got my deck here, and I would usually be shuffling whatever deck I'm going to use, and I would ask you to tell me what's going on in your life. Um, because it's not just like me fishing for information, it's also giving you the space to kind of come down into the moment, and let you know that like this isn't just me talking at you, this is you also having your space to unload. And usually why someone's coming to a tarot reader is because they have something going on in their life that they're not sure how to talk about with other people in their life, whether it's too sensitive, or if it's something spiritual, maybe it's too personal. So they can talk to me about it, and then they'll
So
talk through. Yeah, go ahead.
are we doing a live reading right now, Heather?
Sure, why not? Let's do it.
Heather, a question. I mean,
Oh, we'll do
like,
a little one part.
how do you do that? Like, like the people who don't know out there, who are very, like
Yeah.
newbies,
So
or like, do
the
you ask a
yes no
question?
questions are definitely, they definitely don't work. Am I going to marry this person?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're not a magic 8 ball, is what you're saying.
It's more going to tell you about, like, if I was to be in a relationship with this person, what would that relationship look like? And most of my readings are past, present, and future, which is, we look at the relevant past, which is going to be relevant to this reading. This is the information that we need from your past that's going to inform the rest of this. So some of it's going to be stuff you already know.
Yeah.
but
Could we do a short reading?
yeah.
A live reading? Heather? I want to bring you
Ruben.
both on. Yes.
What does this entail? What do we do?
So is there anything in particular you'd like to look at? Your, financials, work life, love life? Is there any particular
What
situation?
I'd really like to know is where I am
I
sort
do
of.
love this, by the way. So
What?
this is great, by the way.
Yeah.
Just awesome.
Well, I am currently looking for where I'm supposed to be living, like where I'm supposed to be, like physically in the world.
Okay.
And I am from Sacramento, and I spent a long time in the Bay Area, and then I moved to the Pacific Northwest, and now I'm kind of back and trying to sort out like where home is.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, the cards don't have a map, but what I can tell you is sort of feelings around
Okay,
might end up, or if you're even going to move.
great.
So I'll do a little. We're going to do a 1 card with 3 comment cards,
Okay.
and see if I can show you guys what that looks like, sort of. Okay. So
Is this the part where I feel a little nervous? Is this where people get nervous?
yeah, I still get nervous when I give myself ratings because
Yeah.
Sometimes tarot will slap us in the face. So what this looks like, if I was doing a reading with you,
Okay.
doing FaceTime, you'd be able to see this on my table. So this is what I've got out here. We have Justice reversed with the 7 of Swords, the 4 of Swords, and the 4 of Cups reversed. This is not a time to be making that kind of decision, is what I'm getting from this.
Interesting.
Everything feels flaccid right now. Everything's going to feel empty. Just Sacramento's dead. Everywhere is dead. Now there's nothing going on anywhere. So it's going to be really hard to make a decision, even if you were to go visit somewhere and be like, well, I just want to see what Fort Bragg is like on a Saturday night. You're not going to really be able to know. It's going to be.
I have some of these plans, by the way, that you're saying about right now. That's funny.
What I'm also seeing here is that you've got some baggage to unpack here from your past. It's, there's some anxieties, there are old thought patterns, and you're kind of just like, we were talking about carrying this stuff with you. It's like, it's starting to weigh you down and you can't even take this other stuff anymore. You're overloaded. So this is a time where you have the invitation to rest, to release these things that are hanging over you and let go of them, let them release into the ethos, and sort of let those worries kind of float away from you. Because when you're just worrying and like you have talker going on thinking, well, I want to go to a place that has this kind of yoga studio and has blah, 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 and these kind of people, and I want it to have a vegan restaurant, and I'd like to live down the street from a coffee shop. Those are all, those are lists that we make in our head.
Yes.
And the more we get attached to the list, the less it's about the feeling of what we want. And there's so many reasons from our past why we think we want those things. Like, oh, when I lived in Santa Cruz, it was just so great to be walking distance to the grocery store, and I'd really like that again. And then you're attaching your old experiences to something that you want in the future. When we let go and we let God, as they say, we get things we couldn't have possibly imagined. A funny little story I like to tell people is that when I was 18, I wanted to go to Oxford, and I said, universe, at the time I was talking to God because that's who I communicated with, just tell me if I'm going to go. No, because then you're going to want to do it your way. And if I say no, then you're going to try and make it happen. No, just tell me. No, because you're going to try and do it your way. Yeah, you're right. It's the same kind of thing. Is like once we have an answer, we think, okay, well, then I'm going to do it X, Y, Z this way, and I'm going to arrive on this time. And I've got a friend going through something right now where she's trying to get somewhere and keeps kind of getting blocked. And I told her today, you will arrive on time. It's just not what the time that you.
It's not your time, right?
What I'm seeing here with this card here, this is our 4 of Cups reversed, is that this is a time you also want to access a return to your, oh, well, there's some resistance I'm feeling here. There's like a resistance to an idea that you have that you might not like it. I don't know if it's staying here or if it's like, oh, I don't want to go back there. I think I'm done with that kind of place. Or resistance to just the healing that needs to be done before you can move forward, of letting go of all this stuff so that you can rest and have a clear mind. You want to have a clear mind when you make this choice.
All right. That's great. That's wonderful. It definitely speaks to like a lot of what I've been going through, right?
It does, actually, right?
Yeah, it does. I have the pleasure and opportunity, and also just the enormity of being able to recreate. I think we always have that all the time. You can recreate anytime, but other times in our lives, what I want to say, like, you become aware of it. Like, now you can just recreate anything that you want to do. And I'm sort of right there in that moment. And so it's interesting that you bring up healing from the past before you go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much.
And of course, you don't want to be moving all that baggage with you. That's a whole lot of crap to carry.
And not thank you to Ruben for surprise tarot reading.
No, I'm great. That was perfect.
Yeah.
That was actually worked out for me, And like I said, thank you for coming out, Alisa. And
yeah,
and it was awesome. It was great to do that tonight. And
such an honor. Thank you. I had no idea.
Because I have a lot of different questions, but then we'll go into the third hour of this stuff,
right?
Which is awesome. No,
right.
It's great. It's great. It is great. So, but I really appreciate you coming out and coming to Cali Cocktail Hour and answering all the questions that we had for you, because we are newbies and experiences in different things too, right? And so it's just, for me, I feel like this is where I belong in this kind of energy work. I always talk about people about vibrations and about things that people are dealing with. But I'm like, yeah, but that's super physical. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about the spiritual. Let's talk about what really is vibrations and what really is yes, I am a physical being. I'm a person. But let's go deeper than that. Let's go deeper than yes, I don't want to talk about yes, I am Mexican. I'm indigenous, but that's my physical form, right? So to speak. But let's go deeper than that, and let's go deeper as people, and as an energy, how we, can co-op with each other and help each other out and understand each other, so because like I said, with people say witchcraft, like they're gonna be freaking out, right? And I mean in a good way, but to understand each other is an awesome thing to do too.
Right.
And, because there is a lot of, we all know that history was rewritten by people, right? And let's learn the real history of each other. So, I think that's just great. So, and I love the tarot reading. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Heather, you're up next, So, but I
was surprised and so joyous. That was fantastic. I was not expecting that, and it was great to see that. I haven't done that before, so I'm new to that. And,
I love it.
Yeah, and I hope that helps people who might be interested in that go to your site to request that, because it really is an interesting perspective on where you're at right now, right? Like, it's very interesting. So thank you.
And let me ask you a question. So when people people who are just seeing the word witch, right? And they don't know what to do. Like, well, what do I do? Because we're taught in a certain way. How would you alleviate that from them understanding what that term means too? If that makes sense.
Well, I would say, first of all, we're just a bunch of nerds.
That's awesome.
We're all a bunch of nerds.
Yeah.
I think that's, and I don't mean that in a way that
no, I understand that
culture sense of nerd. But I want to unpack that for people. We're people who get really into niche topics. like me, I'm like really into herbs, and I just am always reading up on them and wanting to know more about them. So if you ask us a question, and especially if you ask it politely and with genuine curiosity in your heart,
Yeah.
we're just going to be so psyched to talk about it with you.
Yeah.
And then the other part is that, you know, even though there are many different kinds of witches, and of course there's always sour apples in every bunch, for the most part, we're a lot of people who want to bring some kind of healing to the world, or some kind of balance. We'll call it that. We want to bring some kind of balance
yeah.
to the world through whatever it is that we do.
And so like we would say Mother Earth healing, right?
Right.
Nature, and that's, you know, I think, you know, and we talked about that earlier too, like when you say your European roots, right?
Mhm.
Your indigenous European roots, that we've all, I think that every group has had their own way of dealing with things, right? We have herbs from different parts of the world, right? We have, like, say, Mexico, we have, you know, the huichol are one of the last ones of that carrying that peyote
Mm-hmm.
treatment, because that's where everything is at, right?
Yeah.
We have everything in, you know, in northern, like just everything, you know, like I said, like it's an open field, and I think that's what we need to connect ourselves with, like, you know, don't shut ourselves from each other,
Yeah.
and open ourselves up from, you know, from this goal
Yeah.
is to build a community that has, you know, whatever you want to call it, too, you know, because I think that's an important thing too. So
Yeah.
we appreciate you coming out.
I am so glad that I did.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And yeah, so I drank this whole bottle of sake, which is yeah, no, I didn't, but it isn't from Folsom Boulevard, from Folsom, because they have a sake company in from Japan in Folsom. I don't know if you guys know that too. But,
No,
yeah, they do.
I did not know this. Oh
And
my
they're awesome.
gosh.
Oh my god, they're awesome. They're really cool. You know, I met them before. They're like,
Folsom has such interesting energy. That's like a whole other thing I could get into.
yeah. And we have Denora, who is a wonderful singer, wonderful artist, and she can attest to the Mexican, you know, shaman and Mexican herbs and, you know,
Mhm.
things that we did, you know, too, which I, you know, like I said, which I grew up with, and I'm on the edge of learning stuff, and I went to Mexico to learn more stuff, and it's really cool because it really does, you know, come together as one.
Mhm.
Like, we're, you know, we just have different regions, so we have different
Yeah.
ways of thinking of things, right?
Mhm.
Right.
So, and before we go, I want to play something because, as you know, as you know, not know, but I'm looking at my indigenous roots, and right now I'm getting closer. But this is, I told my friends from Mexico, I'm like, this is the true heavy metal, right? And these are the guamares from the tribe of they're called Chichimecas, and, you know, we were grouped together.
Mhm.
We fought the Aztecs, we fought the Spanish. But I was like, if you come across these people, and I wouldn't mess with them, just because but I love, you know, I mean, like, I wear my crow
Mhm.
feathers. I love, you know, I used to be big hair and goth, you know. I was like, this is the true goth, and this is true, the true metal. So this is the true Mexican metal. But I'm gonna play this just because, then we'll come back and say our goodbyes and everything else too. But I really appreciate you coming out and being honest and open with us. I think
Yay,
that's a
thank
great
you.
thing. And doing a tarot reading, and, you know,
Yeah,
there's no script here, so that's what I love about that. You were just able to come
throw
out,
right
and,
in
you
there.
know, yeah. So we'll
Boom.
come back, and we'll play this, and we'll come back to our you know, and say goodbye, our goodbyes and everything else too. So let's go here. Whoops.
So
Before we
there's
do
a
that,
shop. That's what it looks like.
yeah. So let me go back. Sorry. Um, sorry. Let me go back to the one real quick. But we do. I mean, I really appreciate you coming out, and
I appreciate you inviting me. This
yeah.
is so
And
fun.
will you come back? That's the question.
Oh, you know, kind of whatever, you know.
Yeah, because like, there's a lot of
It's
things
a pandemic out. What am I doing? You know, nothing.
well, because there's also things that, you know, that I'm gonna go back and, okay, I wish I would have asked for this, you know, because I do think that this is a conversation that we should have with all of us, you know, and with all of our modalities that we, you know, that there is, especially the original people, right? The
Mhm.
original thoughts, the original medicine, and the original spirituality that that we that come across, and like I mean, Mexico, it is Catholicism and
Right.
indigenous thought, right? Combined together, the Virgen de Guadalupe, right? All this
Right.
stuff. But I would love to have that discussion about, in here too, and also the European
Mhm.
indigenous too. So,
And
see,
what is the video that we are gonna see?
we are gonna watch. Melissa said, Melissa said, "Hi everybody. Yes, you got to come back." And I say this in a very like one a place of like, I'm so happy to have you here, because I think that we see things as a physical element, right? As a
Mhm.
physical, as a physical being, a third dimensional being. And I believe in there's more than there's three dimensions myself, right? And that dimension that we can't explain, right?
Yeah.
Because I grew up with that in my life. I grew up with, so many different like strange uh, indigenous thoughts and,
Mhm.
and beliefs that I'm finally starting to embrace them more. And I go, you know what, that did happen, and some of them weren't good. Some of them were my dad, and stories about my dad who was abusive alcoholic, and how I grew up. But it was a woman who also had a spell on him. But it makes total sense to me.
Right.
How, what I mean? So and all this, just all this stuff, which I'm okay with too. Like, okay, well, that did happen, but I'm glad that we can have this conversation too
Mhm.
with you,
Yeah.
and I would say debunk the everything else, but there is a lot of things that that are beyond us, that that it's great to see that too. So I'm gonna go back to this is a fire dance, and this is oh, hold on, we have, see, Midnight
Midnight
Rider.
Rider.
Yeah, hello.
Are pendulums true?
Yes, let's ask that. Very awesome. And because I don't know how, if everybody knows how Facebook works, right? Facebook works. It's almost like an octopus, right? The longer you're on, the more it will go out and eat people, right? So we are starting to finally get people out here, right? And asking these questions: are pendulums true? That would be a great question for you.
Oh, let me answer that. So
Yeah.
pendulums are, my particular view is that they are, much like most divination, is designed to reveal our subconscious to ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
pendulums, which I'm going to use my necklace as an example here,
Yes.
um, you would tell it to be still. And uh, contrary to popular belief, each one has a different way of communicating. So you want to ask it, show me yes. And it looks like I'm not moving, but maybe on a very small level I am. Be still and show me no. So now it's moving in a slightly different direction. And there's like maybes, and I don't know, you can ask it. Um, but what it's really doing is that it's revealing your subconscious to you. So in my opinion, it works better when you're using it for yourself.
Yeah.
And some few I've seen like funny new age memes where it's like buying a piece of fruit, which one should I buy? And you're like
Oh,
folding over each piece of
no, I've had my friends do that. Like, try to order some fries. I'm like, dude, put that away. I mean, like, you want to use your power for some.
just tell yourself yes. You're
Yeah.
looking for the yes.
No, I love my friends.
Get the prize.
And my friend Cherie says, perhaps we should have craft night in Pendulum Light, which is, like I said, with this live streaming, I know the fact that the deeper we go, the more people will come, right?
Right.
And that's what's happening right now.
Mhm.
And well, I'm good at staying on. So but it's awesome because someone asked, can I ask your question with your pendulum?
Sure. This
Okay, Midnight Rider, what's your question? And Midnight Rider said, "Oh, OMG, cool, right?" But Midnight Rider, what is your question for Alisa tonight? And we'll hold on for a second. I hope we can type it in there. But the show about Cali Cocktail Hour, I listened to a show on NPR, right? Is about that one person that had the question for you, that one person that you meet. It doesn't matter. Like if you're sitting on a plane and all of a sudden you're talking to this person next to you, and that's the one person in your life you have to meet. You don't know if they don't know if their existence, right? You don't know if they're a spirit.
Yeah.
We don't know what they are, but you ask them. I've been to Oaxaca so many times in Mexico. I don't know, like if I'm talking to a spirit because I don't know if they exist or not. But they have the most incredible experience, like tell me answers they have. Like and I feel like I'm like you're here for me right now, right? In this whole time of the universe right here. And so, oh, we have a question for you. Thank you, Midnight Rider. Will I get married next year or to VR?
Rather than asking my pendulum, I'm going to ask the tarot.
Okay, Midnight Rider, we are going to ask the tarot.
And I'm going to ask, rather than will you get married, I'm going to ask, what is your relationship going to look like in the next year?
Yeah.
Because that's a much more rich answer is what you're looking for. Is it going to be committed? Are things feeling a little bit shaky?
And do you need Midnight Rider to do anything but to think about anything, or just this is it?
No, I do online readings all the time.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes they're even more fun.
Yeah.
Because then you just have to really trust yourself because there's no facial expressions coming back at you. There's, often you're getting the answers in delay. So what is the relationship going to look like for the next year?
And also, Midnight Rider, I put down Alisa's Instagram handle so you can contact her directly too. So, but this is what I love because Cali Cocktail Hour is about that one person that you can reach out to.
Right.
Thousands, who cares? But if you reach out to one person, that's just that we've achieved our goal, right? And the goal is just to be, to help out anybody that we can. And we appreciate you, Alisa, for engaging in this too, right? So
with the cards I've got down, our main one is our Emperor reversed. We also have a 10 of Swords, which is a pretty rough card to get, but we also have it paired with the 10 of Cups with it, which is like, and it looks like this in this deck. In a more traditional deck, there's a rainbow and there's babies dancing under the rainbow and there's this beautiful cottage and everything is happy and perfect. And then we also have our 2 of Pentacles. What I'm seeing here is that there is, you wouldn't be asking if there wasn't a question of whether or not this person is prepared to commit. And that's definitely coming up in our Emperor reversed. There's some growing to do before they're ready to arrive at that point. And I don't just mean for themselves. I mean, even for sort of the universe to kind of lift you both up into this nexus. I'm not going to say it's an impossibility. It's a matter of series of choices. And whether or not they're going to be ready in the next year, it's a possibility. The 10 of Cups is a really good sign, but the 10 of Cups can also come across as sort of, is it a facade? Are we kind of playing at house? Are we, sort of performing as this happy couple? I think it's going to have positive outcomes because we do have this 2 of Pentacles here, and that's a balance that you're coming into. But it's going to take some healing and growing for you both. I think there's still some, while you're both running parallel, there's some work to be done before you can kind of fully cross and merge your paths. I think there's also some old wounds that are being held on to and feeling like, yes, the worst is over, but once the battle is over, what do we got to do? We got to tend our bruises. We got to tend our wounds, come out of that, make sure we pull all the shrapnel out of ourselves so we can move forward more mobile, emotionally mobile in the relationship. I had a guy friend of 10 years that rejected because that time wasn't right and we lost touch. But we grew. He started med school and I'm doing my PhD.
perfect, right? It's time.
Possibilities.
And also, he says, I like him, so this is totally resonates because we know each other for a decade, and I was curious if he likes me and thinks about me. Right?
I think for them, there's going to be, and it makes sense that they are, you said they're in med school.
I'm bringing that up. Yeah.
It makes sense that they would get the emperor reversed because when you're in med school, you're like near being the emperor, but you're still. I haven't even seen Grey's Anatomy, but there's this ad that comes up on my Netflix where it's like, does anyone feel like they're actually learning anything? The chaos of med school is going to be really distracting. But there's good vibes. You guys have really good vibes overall.
Yeah. So Midnight Rider, this is about you right now. So if you have any questions, ask Alisa now because we're all locked into you right now, right? And yeah, and and I appreciate Alyssa for like this is great. This is awesome. So hold on, here we go. Like we went to his high school, college, and kept in touch in grad, sort of. Okay, so we need a little more. Midnight Rider, we need just a little more information about you.
Unbated breath.
Yes, and this is great. So hold on, here you go.
Oh, your pendulum. Here. All right.
And it's crazy.
Oh, and I see these are coming from YouTube. Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. Love this.
So
Pardon me. I need
I'm hooked up to YouTube.
here.
Yeah. But this is great. Like I said, oh, hold on. Before you do that, I need to do this real quick. Hold on. Also, this is a group I am high, and this is witchcraft. So this is the beauty of live streaming. It just the shit goes on, right? So I'm drinking sake. So he want to see. I want to see if I was crazy, and I was just wondering, right?
There's certainly potential, but like I said, there's a lot of life is about a series of choices. There's always room for what we would call fate to shift.
And also, Midnight Rider, you're here now, right? Well, I don't know where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. This is life. This is universe. And you know what? When you come and you're here now, this is what you want to hear, regardless of what we do, right? And so it's great to hear you coming in and opening up to us too. And Alyssa getting high and his witchcraft. So that's awesome too. Yeah. So thank you for, and I hope that answer, if you have any more questions for her, please put it up.
Yeah, please reach out to Alyssa.
Yes. And if you think of anything later, you can hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah.
As far as any clarifying questions, but the overall message is going to stay the same.
Yeah. So I want to see if it was crazy or if I was wondering, is what the last question was. Right?
Well, oh my gosh, finally able to comment.
And that's a Facebook user because, like we'll figure it out next time. We do have, there's some issues with Facebook on streaming into a different
Oh, Marlene.
Yeah.
I'm Marlene.
And we don't know who this is because you have to there's a whole different thing, but we appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And, we'll do a special show where we can do this because this is great. This is awesome. Right. It was let me before, but of course, yes. And we love that you love this, and that's why we're staying on a little bit longer because we knew this was going to happen. So, and Midnight Rider, you are here and you're listening to things because it is the moment in time in life, and how else would you reconcile this, right? Because when I go to Mexico and I ask a question to someone, and someone is across from me making me and she's indigenous or she's making me things, and I just listen. I'm like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be here in this time, and I don't even know if you exist or not. I don't know if you are a spirit talking to me, but you are here in this moment in time answering this question for me, and I understand this, and this is also into the cyber world that we're into. So he actually is ready to go. Heather, you want to read that?
You want to?
Actually, it's crazy. When I was in college, first year, I went to a psychic to ask about a guy I liked back in high school, not this guy. And they all said that he wasn't for me. But they all said a guy around me likes me. And this guy I mentioned to y'all lived in the same apartment complex as me for my first year, thinking years later and hearing what y'all say is wild.
Or is it the time that you need to hear it too, right?
Right.
Because think about all the mathematics, right?
Mhm.
And everything that we've lived in our lives, every path that we went to, we're here right now, right? To hear what we have to hear. What Alisa made in her tarot cards, right? And so that's to me, that is the part of like, you know, where do we go,
Mhm.
right? Or what do we do? And especially in this world right now, because we're all energy beings. I mean, I may not be the person that you see right now, right?
I was just going to ask you that, Ruben, because you
I will
said
take.
when I'm in Oaxaca, I ask this person, I don't know if they're a spirit or not, or if they're really there or not, right? I don't know. And I wondered if you had that experience yourself, or if you've thought of yourself that way, where you might just be in the right place and time for another human
Yeah,
and
maybe.
had that same impact on them.
But I am in Mexico, right? I am in on my other alternate reality too.
Right.
So yeah, so this is what I love about this whatever that we're at. You know, we can see each other as a physical being, but you know, we're all energy, right? At this point, right? And Midnight Rider, we appreciate you asking these questions and getting engaged in that too, because I know that we can get a bigger engagement with people too about this stuff too, because if you think about it, the mathematics and my friend Uli, he's a he's a brilliant mechanic, engineer, and he thinks about mathematics all the time and all this stuff, like all these um, series of things. Like we're here for this moment in time, and you're in Midnight Rider. You're here asking this question for this moment in time to Alisa. We have you on, right? And so it is yeah, it's awesome thing to do. So
Yeah, it's like one in billions that we're crossing.
yeah. So, and Midnight Rider, do you have any other questions, or we appreciate you coming on too from YouTube.
If anyone else has any questions,
Yeah, because we're here for you. We are here for you at this point. So, and if you want to ask any questions, or do anything else, uh, buy some of the herbs and stuff that you sell too. That's especially the candles. I think the candles are very important.
I love
Yeah.
my candles. Also, I want to show you guys the top of my candles. How gold mica powder.
Yeah.
And this is not something. So part of it is that yes, I'm the gold country witch, and I freaking love gold.
Mhm.
As you can see, a lot of my interior decor is gold. We've got my Nina Dorado on this side here. Not mine, but I'm babysitting that one. And so the reason for the sparkly on top, this is a traditional element. Some people will tell you it's not, but adding sparkly mirrors or glass glitter was something that you do to attract the attention of the spirits on the other side of the veil. So there are certain kinds of things that will bring spirits close to the veil so that they can hear your prayers and receive your offerings. Things that are particularly unctuous or have a really strong smell, like essential oils, vaporous alcohols, really strong smelling foods. That's why in ancient Samaria they actually barbecued their offerings to the gods so that the smoke of the meat would rise to the heavens.
Yeah.
And shinies are one of those things that when they're kind of glittering on the other side of the veil, it'll attract their attention and bring them close to receive your prayers. And as my friend Susan Diamond says, Serpent's Kiss, they also help reflect your prayers up to the universe. And that's these particular candles, like we've mentioned.
So you could buy the candles. You have 25% off, right?
25% off, and then if you use the discount code for tonight, Cali Cocktail, it's a total of 50% off. It's $10 instead of $20.
And then we have one more Facebook user week because they are probably from the group.
Oh yes.
But they can't comment on what the name is. So Spinners at 10 o'clock. So interesting. My mind is blown, which is awesome too, right? So let's go back to what. So this I'm gonna play real quick, and then we'll come back and say our goodbyes. Or hold on. This is what I love. So Yes, I love the candle. I'm taking advantage of your promo.
Yay!
Finally, yes. No, this is great. And like I said, it is really it's awesome to do this, and people are listening and getting to this point too. I'm gonna play this my discovery of the many tribes that I'm trying to discover, and they're part of the Chichimeca, which is a group of tribes that fought off the Spanish and fought off the Aztecs too. But I love that in Mexico, a lot of people don't embrace the indigenous, right? They're
Right.
mostly embrace the Spanish or the Portuguese, right? But there's a lot of us going back and embrace, and embracing the indigenous part of us. And I showed my friend who was like, I go, you want to see heavy metal? This is the original heavy metal, and but I love that the different tribes have different colors that they use, right? One tribe has all red that they use, and they dye their hair red and all this stuff. One is the Huichols, who are all in white, and different. They're more of a calm tribe. This one is all in black. They used the black feathers, which I have right here,
Wow.
and but they all dress in all in black. And I was like, and I looked at these, I'm like, I wouldn't want to fuck with these guys, with these people, you know what I mean? Because they're really intense. But
Yeah.
I love it, but it's beautiful what they do, and it's a beautiful a dance that they do, and it's a dance of the fire. So I'm gonna bring them up, and then we'll come back and and say our not our goodbyes, but maybe our goodbyes, right? So they're called the Guamares, and this is the dance of the Guamares, and we will go right now, and we'll play it. Okay. Before I get back into the into the
Now
commercials.
tell us what that was, Ruben.
So it's a fire dance, right? But so I'm looking for my people, right? In Mexico, it's not something that you go into, into the indigenous, right? Because indigenous, as always, and it's sad that it's always the second class people,
Mhm.
right? And but so as I look into where I am at using my DNA, I'm going to these different tribes, and the Guamanes was actually one tribe that I was like, it looks a little bit intimidating, but it's very beautiful to me,
Mhm.
and they do a dance ritual of fire, and that was one of them. And they actually, the more modern ones is really cool because they use these LED lights, and that's a different story. But
So fun.
yeah, but like they use, I want to say the feathers that I use, right?
Mhm.
But I'm getting closer to who I am learning about my own DNA. So yeah, so I just wanted to show everybody that that's it may look scary to you, but it's really
Oh,
there's
it's
a
very
reason for it.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Heather,
beautiful.
Heather, but oh look, we have our friend from Portland. Sorry, jumping on late, but hi, Heather and Ruben
Hey,
here.
Ash.
Ashley, you're really late, but that's okay. We still love you, Ashley. We still love you. Yeah. Ashley's an awesome, great person that that came into my life too. Very in my goth days. So, and I'm sorry if I was a bad boyfriend. So that's a good thing too. But I had to learn. I mean, it was yeah. So I didn't have good teachers. in my life, right? So, see, right? Ash, right? No, you're supposed to give me a little bit more like credence to
Oh
that.
my
I'm
gosh.
sorry. I know. I forgive myself, but I also ask for your forgiveness too. So, anyways, that's what we love about this live stream. So, and we have Midnight Rider. One last question for that. What do my guys want to tell me, Alyssa?
Ooh.
I'm gonna say that's for you. And you know what? I want to say that this, if it's only for you, Midnight Rider, right? If it's only for you, this show tonight, this is what we're here for you, is for you tonight. So I want you to answer that as as much as you can. So, and I thank you that you appreciate us because we appreciate you.
The one thing this sounds, it's going to sound like me copping out and sound kind of ridiculous, but they said you're not listening to them.
Let's go back to Take Now Han, right?
And I don't,
Deep listening techniques, yes.
they're saying something to the effect of, we already told you. There's a lot of chatter. They've got a lot to say. They've given you a really specific message before, and there's like like, I'll try to help you out this with me talking as a person. So when you receive a message, there's a hearing it, and then there's embodying it, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're acting on it. It's like you're absorbing that message to integrate into your subconscious. So they've told you before, and they're saying you know how to listen. You just need to listen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he says like, oh, it's about the guy, right? It's about him, right?
They already told you, don't ask me. They're gonna know way more than I will.
Because mentally, I'm arguing with myself, right? I mean, and we all argue with ourselves, right? I had a friend who called me the other day and was like, "Hey, look, I'm having these issues, right? Like I'm fighting with myself. That I have all these running thoughts." I'm like, we all have running thoughts. We all do, right? And if you go back to Buddhism, it's all about we all suffer the same way, right? We're all suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to find a way to undo this, especially in this kind of like, I don't want to say it like like this kind of Western world thought of capitalism, and we're always like trying to figure things out, and it's hard to figure out. So, and we're with you, right? And I think you coming on here, Midnight Rider, and asking us these questions are great, and so we have another one ask you like, are you still doing tarot on here, Alyssa? We just did one. So Facebook user identify you because we can't see who you are, but maybe if you ask a question, Alyssa can answer that question for you too, right? Charisse says, I remember those days, and Charisse was an awesome person and kind of mothered us in a way. She had a very caring soul to us too. Ashley, I love you. I always love you. Yeah, and I, like I said, I will admit my faults in my life. I was guided by the wrong source of energy, right? Male energy, and my dad and all this shit, But I'm okay with that too. So, Minute Rider's like, because I meant to argue with myself, So let's go back to that right here.
Like, he is a friend, so I'm trying to accept it, but I like him, but I'm in duality, but all signs point to him, so I'm trying to accept.
Things will become clear. There's no reason to figure it out tomorrow. Life is much longer than we think.
Yeah. Ashley says, Charisse. And we all love Charisse, right?
We all love Sharice.
So, Midnight Rider says,
but we aren't in touch. So, ugh, but y'all helped. Like my guides tell me he does, and you all are telling me too. Okay, I accept, universe. Thank you all.
And you rock. So, and Facebook user says, I am Maria
Marlene.
Yes, I know who I am.
I'll do a card for Marlene.
And, and we appreciate everybody for coming out tonight. And thank you for coming out for Cali Cocktail Hour. Any other questions? We're here for you, and we will accept all of us for who we are tonight. So, um, any final last words for anybody else tonight? Heather, any questions?
No, I mean, I have lots of questions, but probably for another session. Our Cali Cocktail Hour has
Well,
struggled
you
to
can ask
Cali
questions.
Cocktail Hours, but thank you so
Call it
much,
cocktail
Alyssa,
extra
for
hour.
extra hour, power hour.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
So,
Marlene, this is your real quick card. You've got the 2 of Swords reversed. This is funny that it feels kind of like the same answer that I gave Midnight Rider. You're
yeah.
aware of the choices that have to be made. I think you're keeping yourself from making the choice because this is something that will basically split your road off from where you are now. And of course, that is very anxious feeling. But know that you have the capacity to make this choice. It's just about letting go of the result. There you go.
There you go, Marlene. So, yeah. Any final last questions? So, come to next Friday. We'll be doing artist talk on with Joya Fonda on Cali Cocktail Hour Friday night. We'll drink
That's this
something
Friday,
else.
yeah?
Well, actually, we may be drinking the same sake because wine is different, and sake is my Asian blood, I guess. So I'm very excited about this. And this goes a long way. So yeah, so it may be a different a different Kali cocktail hour from a sake hour. So, but soju is another story. So, um, and she says, "Y'all rock, Midnight Rider," and thank you so much. And Alyssa, I would like to thank you for coming out tonight
Thank you, Ruben. This has
and
been
being,
so fun.
we like to keep it like not no structure, which is awesome. It's
Real talk.
perfect for me.
So
Yeah.
fun, yeah.
Yeah, and people coming out here tonight talking about stuff, and like I said, Minute Writer, we're glad that you asked questions, and we were here for you, right? And so that's probably the basic thing that we are going for these days. So, anybody else out there who want to ask Alyssa?
That's actually it's what one of my friends used to call me.
That's my drunk Spanish accent. Órale, Aliska, ¿cómo estás? Right? So, you can reach her at Gold Country, which will be is it Instagram? Yeah, right.
Instagram and
Yeah.
TikTok.
Let me ask you a question about Instagram. So
Mhm.
you do a lot of stuff on Instagram. Like, so what is it about Instagram that you like doing your live streams on? Is it because you get a lot of different people, or
Yeah, it's a different audience. I have like a really specific kind of audience on Instagram that's different
yeah,
than what I have on TikTok. Like my one on TikTok is just such a I love TikTok. It's also a very like instant gratification app where you're
yeah,
just like, you are rolling and rolling. You can be rolling for 4 hours and you're just like keep laughing and commenting and enjoying things. Instagram kind of makes you pause a little bit longer because you're stopping to either look at the picture or decide if you want to read the text, and then
yeah,
if you read the text and you spend your time reading that. Um, so my crowd on Instagram is, I don't want to say they're more thoughtful, but they're the kind of crowd who likes to stop and look at something and read it. And,
yeah,
um, and TikTok's like much more instant and reactionary, and, all of what you're going to say is in the video versus in the, you've got some video and talking, and then my Facebook is also a radically different community. It's like taking care of 3 different houses.
yeah, right. And no, I've seen that too. So it's an awesome. It is a different houses of people, right? And I noticed that myself too. So,
Yeah.
like Facebook is more like engaging more deeply about stuff. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're gonna have a conversation. You better watch out. You know?
Yeah, you can have like
Yeah.
a whole detailed,
Yeah. Yeah.
theorized, cited debate on Facebook, and
Yeah.
Instagram's a little more limited, and TikTok is like the
Yeah.
most limited.
Yeah. So it depends, like what's your combination.
Yeah.
So shit. Thank you very much. And my friend Teresa, who is Aztec dancer and healer too, light healer, coming aboard too. So we'd like to thank you very much. And any last words for everybody? And thank you for coming up. And hopefully we'll, I want you to come back.
Yeah, I will.
And it's first we're gonna go for an hour, right? And I think it's been 2.5 hours, which is okay because that's just the way life is, right?
Right.
And different people come on, and that's what we know about live streaming. So, which is I'm good. I can stay for fucking 10 hours, so I'm good. But anyways, at some point we have to end, and this is the ending point. So, thank you everybody for coming out for Cali Cocktail Hour, and thank you for Alyssa for coming.
Thank you so much for your time, Melissa.
Yeah,
Yes.
we took up a lot of your time tonight.
Hey, it was
Because-
fun,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll come back and do another show, and we'll shoot it to the the community. And if questions or anything like that abound, it'd be great to answer those too. So everybody, thank you. Coming out Friday night, we have Lynn Mayuba, who's my co-host, and it will be Gio Fonda for some artwork and some beautiful art stuff. So yeah. Anyways, so thank you. Oh.
Gracias. Huh?
Did I play everything? Yes, I did. Okay. Anyways, but you guys stay on just real quick so I can say goodbye. But everybody else, thank you very much for coming out.
All right.
So,
Good night, everyone.
so the sake is like really taking my Asian part of my blood. Awesome. So that's great. Okay. All right.
Good night.
Good night.